Nestled right alongside the River Clyde, here in the western lowlands of Scotland, is the country's largest city. This is Glasgow, and it was once a port city. They still call it the Merchant City, but today, this town is a thriving hub of industry, energy, art, creativity, shopping, and I want to show you all of it. And if it looks a little chilly, well, it is. It's about 31 degrees Fahrenheit, but if you ask me, this is the perfect weather to explore all of that medieval architecture, and more importantly, to have all kinds of fun. I'm Todd Newton. Welcome to Glasgow, Scotland, and welcome to the Tattooed Traveler. First of all, let me just say that the rail system here in the United Kingdom is spectacular. It makes life so much easier for 1.5 billion passengers every year, myself included. Sorry, bus. And the moment I stepped off the train at Queen Street Station, I decided it was time to wet my whistle. And where better to do that than at the city's oldest pub, the Scotia. Now, in a town that boasts more than 200 great pubs, the Scotia has been around since 1792. Originally, it was a hangout for merchant sailors bringing their goods into town from the River Clyde. Look at those low ceilings, L-shaped bar, I love it. Wood beams, it's perfect. Now, in the early 1900s, the theater crowd began taking notice of the Scotia, hanging out here, performers and theater goers, writers, poets. They'd congregate in these little nooks called snugs so they could hear each other talking. And some say the snugs here at the Scotia are haunted by employees of the past. But the bartender on duty today is Ryan, who was kind enough to introduce me to a smooth Scottish whiskey.
This is Auchentoshan. This is the closest distillery to Glasgow. It's a very smooth whiskey. This is the American oak that they do. So it's aged in first fill, second fill bourbon casks. Give you a wee shot of it here.
So it's a shot?
Oh, it's a shot, yeah. We call this a quarter gel. This is the old 35 ml, so this is a Scottish measure.
Slanger. That is smooth. Thank you for taking it easy on me. This is a pretty compact city. It's easy to get around. And if you want to see all that you can see while here, go on foot. From political statements to whimsical designs, many of the buildings here in Glasgow have become canvases for self-expression for artists from all over the world. So I want to take you down some of the back alleyways and show you some of this absolutely incredible art that you'll find and really enjoy if you just take the time to explore. There are a handful of really good self-guided walking tours available online that will direct you to some of the more sought-after murals here in the city. It will only take you about 90 minutes and you'll be blown away. I mean, these creations, they decorate blank end walls and old vacant buildings and transform these otherwise less attractive corners of the city into striking public artworks. Most of them are regulated and commissioned by the city, which is great. Oh, I love this one. This is by an artist who calls himself Smug. And Smug, as well as the other artists, really benefit because when the city commissions a piece, it means they pick up the bill for it. And these are just awesome. But truthfully, I think it's the residents of the city, as well as visitors like you and me, who really benefit because it obviously cuts down on what I guess most of us would call graffiti and replaces all of that with just gorgeous splashes of color. This one is my favorite, also by Smug. The detail on this rivals anything you'll find in a museum. Incredible. These street murals started showing up around the city in 2008, rejuvenating streets, revitalizing buildings, making Glasgow an even more beautiful place for all of us. And just so you know, I had to slip each one of these pigeons $5 to flutter off on cue like that. This incredible structure that you see behind me here is not only the oldest building here in Glasgow, but it is also the oldest building in mainland Scotland. With a history dating back to the 12th century, I'm taking you inside Glasgow Cathedral. It also happens to be the only medieval cathedral here on the Scottish mainland to have survived the Protestant Reformation of 1560 virtually intact. That was when seemingly overnight, Scotland went from a devout Catholic country to a Protestant one. Catholicism pretty much ceased to exist, and attempts were made to eradicate all traces of the religion. And that meant Catholic cathedrals like this one were attacked. All the altars, sculptures, and other Catholic artifacts, even the furnishings, were removed and destroyed. But this cathedral is a survivor. It also battled its way through several fires. It even got struck by lightning in 1406. That did some significant damage. The cathedral is dedicated to Saint Mungo, the patron saint of Glasgow. Saint Mungo is said to have founded the city in the 6th century. And in fact, this building is home to what is said to be Saint Mungo's tomb. That's on the lower level. I'll take you down there in a moment. But these stained glass windows, Munich glass windows, actually, there are more than 100 of them here. They're not original. They were all replaced in the 1850s and 1860s, which is still quite impressive. Though it does seem like just yesterday, doesn't it, when you consider how long this building has been in existence. I mentioned those attacks during the mid-1500s. These two oak doors are the only remaining original doors in the cathedral, and if you look closely, you can see bullet holes in them. There's about a dozen sprayed throughout, an indication of not so pleasant times in the cathedral's history. This will take us down into the lower church, it's called, and this is where Saint Mungo is supposedly, by all accounts, obviously it's hard to document going back hundreds and hundreds of years, but this is where he is supposed to have been laid to rest. Born in 518 AD, the archives say he passed on January 13th, 614 AD. That would have put him at 96 years of age. Truthfully, I suppose there could be dozens of bodies buried down here. Customs and traditions were so different in those times. The way a person was celebrated and remembered varied so much based on wealth and status and what you contributed to the community, either financially or historically, religiously, creatively. The Scottish burial customs of medieval times were really a testament to the resilience and unity of a people deeply connected to their land and their heritage. They understood that death was not an end, but a continuation of life's eternal cycle, which is why, you can tell by the gates, why the necropolis, the cemetery that is connected to the cathedral, actually positioned on a 37-acre hill directly behind it, is so grand, I guess is a good word for it. I wanted to bring you through here before we head back to city center because it is one of the largest and most significant burial grounds in Europe, established in 1832, and there are over 50,000 individuals buried here, including some notable figures from Glasgow's history. Merchants, and I saw some politicians, artists, military figures, of course. And while some of the tombstones and monuments, mausoleums are impossible to miss, others are so old that you can barely make out the dates. Nonetheless, the necropolis is a moving place. All right, let's get out of the cold and warm our bones a little bit here before we continue our adventure. How about a cup of coffee? Not just any coffee, no. I'm taking you to sexy coffee. And oh, they serve it all here, from espressos, lattes, to cocktails, cold draft beer, and even collagen coffee. right, Shanice?
Collagen coffee is basically, so you get a wee scoop of collagen just here. So you get a wee scoop in there, and it's good for your skin, your hair, your nails. So we just add a scoop of the collagen into coffee, any coffee, like latte or cappuccino, and yeah.
And I'll still get all my caffeine too,
You'll
right?
still get all your caffeine, and you'll get some protein as well in there, some protein.
Shanice, you can count me in for anything that promotes a healthy head of hair, I'll tell you that. That and a quick bite should fuel me up proper, as they say here in Scotland, for our next stop, which is to learn more about an ancient Scottish tradition, the kilt. Here's my friend Robert Anderson to explain.
Kilt is a traditional garment worn by gentlemen from Scotland, and its origin goes back as far as history will allow us to see, back to King James period and the Jacobite rebellion and stuff like that. It was a garment that allowed you to move more freely.
I can imagine. Robert is with John Morrison Kilt Makers and Weavers here in Scotland. So a kilt is a traditional Scottish garment, like he said, knee-length, skirt-like, made from tartan fabric. And as you can see here, it consists of crisscrossing horizontal and vertical stripes of different colors, a symbol of Scottish identity. Robert, when would a man wear a kilt?
Historically, back in the day, they were used predominantly for battle, but they also were worn for formal occasions, to celebrate weddings, any functions that required a gentleman to look smart for a lady. It was very much a garment of the day, and still is to this day, very much.
Yeah, you do see them everywhere here in Scotland, in pubs and restaurants, even out on the street during these winter months. But I guess that woolen fabric provides some warmth, and they can be handcrafted, tailored to the gentleman's liking, accessorized. Now, surely you didn't think I flew over 5,000 miles not to try on a kilt, right? Robert, what can I expect here?
It has the wow factor of it. People are, when they try a kilt on for the first time, and it's can only be experienced by the person wearing the garment, but it's very much, once you try it, you definitely will want to put it on again.
Huh? Look at this. And what is this called again?
A sporran.
Sporran.
Yeah.
Look at that. And this is a pretty fancy one,
This
right?
is one of the more fancy ones that we do, but they're traditionally made from either leather or some kind of fur over the top, but they're a fully functional garment. You can put mobile phones and all sorts inside them.
I got to tell you, I could get used to this. You hear that a lot, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Yep. I'm a believer. Breezy, comfy, versatile. I can wear it with my cowboy boots or my high tops. I'm all about the kilt. Perfect attire, I might add, to do a little shopping on one of the city's busiest streets, Buchanan Street, completely pedestrianized, by the way, so you can safely jump from high-end shop to high-end shop. Pretty much all of your favorites are here. Luxury brands, boutiques, department stores. I even saw a couple of bagpipe players in front of the Apple Store. Buchanan Street is also known as a haven for street performers, really talented. Listen to that. Talented street performers. Oh man, it's easy to get caught up in that. Great stuff. The architecture here on Buchanan Street is a fabulous mix of styles ranging from Victorian to Edwardian to modern designs. And this is the perfect time of year to be here because during the holidays, all of the buildings are aglow with festive lighting. And listen, if live entertainment is your thing, Glasgow is a big entertainment city. Look at that, Tom Jones at King's Theatre. There's the ballet, countless playhouses, and pretty much all the big names come here. But if you want to get down and dirty with some nitty-gritty live music, well, then you need to head over to Bath Street and a place called the Howlin' Wolf. Every Sunday night, the Howlin' Wolf features a live blues jam. Bring your guitar, bring your keyboards, bring your drums, just bring your voice. Everyone is welcome to jam on stage until 3 in the morning, which is way past my bedtime. The final stop of this episode brings us to the charming little town of Stirling, Scotland. Now, it's only about a 25-30-minute train ride from Glasgow's Queen Street station, maybe 14 pounds round trip. Well worth it to visit a castle that, as far as records show, was established in the year 1110 by King Alexander I of Scotland. This is Stirling Castle. The town of Stirling reminded me of a quaint village that you might read about in a fairy tale. So I guess it's only fitting that Stirling Castle sits upon a volcano, an inactive volcano, but a volcano nonetheless, that is over 350 million years old. And throughout that extensive history, it's been used as both a fortress and a royal residence for Scotland's kings and queens. As I mentioned, King Alexander I is the first Scottish monarch that we know of who lived here. He actually died here in 1124, and it continued to be a royal residence off and on until the reign of King Charles II. It's got some Hollywood history, too. Some episodes of Game of Thrones were shot here, Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Perfect backdrop for a couple of music videos as well for REM and Bob Dylan. This is the Great Hall. It's the largest, most majestic of its kind here in Scotland. And this area is pretty interesting. This was the Lion's Den. In the 1500s, James V kept a lion here, not as a pet, really, more as a living symbol of Scottish pride. It'll cost you about £12 to tour the castle. Definitely worth it. It gets you access not only to the grounds, but also here to the royal apartments. Now, this was the greeting room. Regardless of who you were, you came here first if you wanted time with the king or the queen. And this is the Queen's chambers being dusted by one of her ladies-in-waiting. And there isn't much as far as original furniture on the tour, but some of the decorations on the walls and certainly the ceilings, pretty interesting. I'll take you inside her private bed chambers here, the Queen. So you would go from the general meeting hall to the outer chambers where we just were. And if you were really special, if you really had status, you would be granted access here, where she held the majority of her meetings, the Queen. The Queen's bed and the King had his own private chambers, not far from here, but a separate wing, if you will. You would think that royalty would have a much larger bed than this. Here is the great kitchen. You can see the men, women, even kids who prepared the feasts for kings and queens. Really cool. Stirling Castle is open every day from 9:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Now, before we say goodbye, you know that here at the Tattooed Traveler, I normally like to take you to restaurants that are local, a taste of the city. But check out this corner, KFC, Pizza Hut, Mickey D's. Glasgow has the second highest number of takeaway restaurants, fast food joints, in the UK. And ask anyone who has the best fish and chips, they'll tell you the Blue Lagoon. You won't have to travel far to find one. There's a dozen of them. And truth be told, I was ready to call this a cheat day after all the walking we've done. Fish and chips was on my radar. I'm not really a Haggis and Tatties guy. And when you give me a plate this size, this full for, $16 US, I'm in. Little brown sauce on those chips, which I still call French fries, and oh yeah, yet another reason to fall in love with Scotland. You can see why the Blue Lagoon has been around for almost 50 years. Well, I hope you enjoyed our excursion to the great city of Glasgow, Scotland. We saw a lot of fascinating things. We learned a lot, met some great people, but most importantly, we made some wonderful memories. And that's what life is all about, right? Hey, now would be a great time for you to grab your brand new Tattooed Traveler hoodie or t-shirt. You can get it right now at thetattooedtraveler.com. I appreciate you spending this time with me. I'm Todd Newton, and until we meet again a little further down the road, travel safely.